Thank you for returning to our channel. As hillbillies became millionaires, they made America chuckle for 9 years. The true tragedy, however, started when the cameras stopped rolling. The cast was ripped apart by covert illnesses, clandestine conflicts, and unexpected deaths. On Broadway, one star fell. A desperate attempt at a political campaign ended in disgrace. Today, you'll be left speechless by the terrible reality about what happened to TV's favorite family. Buddy Ebsen may have retired when the Beverly Hillbillies broke up in 1971. At the age of 63, he had recently completed 9 years of playing the part of Jed Clampett, which made him a household name. He didn't slow down, though. He began something quite else. Buddy shocked everyone by playing a completely different part in 1973. He played the role of serious private investigator Barnaby Jones in a crime drama. Jed Clampett, who was humorous and easygoing, was not like this. He portrayed Barnaby, a resolute detective who solved the death of his son. For 8 years, the show was a huge hit. Buddy proved he wasn't finished yet, as he made appearances in all 178 of its episodes. Very few actors ever get to star in 2 long-running series back-to-back, and by the time it ended in 1980, Buddy was 72. Barnaby Jones didn't stop Buddy from performing. He starred in Fire on the Mountain, a television film, in 1981 when he was 73 years old. He then starred in Stone Fox, another one, in 1986. In 1984, at the age of 76, he even appeared on the action series Matt Houston on a regular basis. Buddy seems to be unaffected by his age. One of his most unexpected actions was in 1999, a long time later. Buddy, who is 91 years old, appeared as a voice actor in the animated series King of the Hill. The length of his career is highlighted by the fact that this little job came 37 years after he originally rose to fame as Jed Clampett. But Buddy wasn't only an actor. He was an accomplished and passionate sailor. In fact, he created his own catamaran, Polynesian concept. In addition to racing it for enjoyment, he did this in international championships. He won a 125-mile race from Newport Beach to Ensenada in 1968 while still a member of the Beverly Hillbillies, sailing his boat to the finish line in less than 14 hours. He was inventive, though, in other ways as well. He composed almost 80 songs and even 2 theatrical dramas, Turn to the Right and The Champagne General. He was more than a mere actor. He was a man of many ideas, a dramatist and a songwriter. Buddy chose to lead a more straightforward life by the sea later in life. Rather than remain in Hollywood, he constructed a home on the peaceful island of Balboa, which is located off the shore of Newport Beach. It was the ideal residence for a water lover. As much as he did. As he grew older, Buddy continued to be active and enjoyed telling stories about his incredible career. In 2001, on his 93rd birthday, he discussed his life on Larry King Live. He was still charming and full of life. Buddy was 95 years old when he died on July 6, 2003. TV Land honored him with a special marathon of the Beverly Hillbillies a week later. He accomplished a great deal in his amazing career, and it was a heartfelt way to honor his life. Ryan Irene. On March 23, 1971, the Beverly Hillbillies disbanded, and Irene Ryan's life took a radical turn. Despite being 68 years old, she had no intention of retiring. She made the decision to reprise her role as Granny Daisy Moses in live theater rather than spin-offs or commercials. The decision was audacious, especially for a person of her age. However, Irene was adamant about continuing to perform. She took part in the musical Pippin's 30-city tour later that year. The schedule was demanding, with 8 performances each week. Nobody anticipated how hard Irene worked. Her vigor astounded everyone, despite her diminutive size and approaching 70. Backstage, she remained busy as well, handling the bustle with professionalism. She reportedly possessed the same drive as she did during her vaudeville career. Her role in the show was that of Berta, the main character's grandmother. One of her songs became a favorite, No Time at All. She received standing ovations from audiences every night because they adored her so much. Critics also gave her appreciation. According to the New York Times, her performance was so strong that her co-star was unable to continue his sentence due to the prolonged applause. Irene made her major Broadway debut in New York City on October 23, 1972. Her transformation from grandmother to stage star left many in awe. On March 26, 1973, her efforts paid off when she received a Tony Award nomination. Everyone congratulated her on her achievement, which was a tremendous occasion for her. But then a horrible event occurred. During a performance on March 10, 1973, Irene passed out. Despite what appeared to be a stroke, she persisted on completing the program. She then went back to California for medical treatment. She then received devastating news. Her doctors stated she only had a few weeks to live because of an aggressive brain tumor called glioblastoma. People were still complimenting her performance when she lay in the hospital. When the Tony Award nominations were revealed on April 16, 1973, Irene's name was included. She was unfortunately unable to attend the event. Irene passed away on April 26, 1973, 10 days later. Her age was 70. Given that she had only been playing on stage for a few weeks, her unexpected demise startled everyone. Prior to her passing, Irene ensured her legacy would endure. Her whole fortune was left to her. To establish the Irene Ryan Foundation, more than $1 million. In order to help aspiring actors realize their aspirations, the organization awards scholarships to them. The first scholarships were given out shortly before her death in 1972. Since then, thousands of performers have received assistance from the organization, many of whom have gone on to have prosperous careers. Donna Douglas. The character of Ellie Mae Clampett made Donna Douglas famous in the Beverly Hillbillies, a popular television program. But once the show finished, she had many unexpected and significant changes in her life. On April 23, 1971, the show ended, and Donna had to decide what to do. She may have become much more well-known if she had been cast in a new soap opera, as Hollywood desired. She shocked everyone, however, by refusing. She made a totally different decision rather than pursuing greater recognition. Donna visited Israel a few months later, in September 1971. This journey permanently altered her life. She became involved in Christian ministry as a result of a profound spiritual experience. After leaving Hollywood, Donna turned to gospel singing and motivational speaking. Her debut gospel album, Donna Douglas Sings Gospel, was released in 1982. Despite not selling millions of copies, it was nonetheless a success. 50,000 copies sold. She produced 3 additional albums throughout the years, the last of which, Back on the Mountain, was released in 1989. Donna also talked about a hidden battle she had during her tenure on the Beverly Hillbillies at this period. She had struggled with an eating condition that had caused her to lose weight to 95 pounds and eat as low as 500 calories a day. This was unknown at the time. But according to Donna, she overcame it because of her faith. Donna was in the news once more in 2011, but for a totally different reason. She claimed that Mattel and CBS had stolen her image for an Ellie Mae Barbie doll and filed a $75 million lawsuit against them. Months passed throughout the legal battle. It also demonstrated that Donna was strong and resolute, just like the persona she portrayed on television, even if it was settled out of court. Donna attempted selling real estate when the Beverly Hillbillies disbanded. Despite not being in the industry for long, she obtained her license in 1973. She only made 3 home sales. During one of those sales, a fan who knew Donna insisted on purchasing the house simply because she was selling it. She decided to pursue other interests as real estate wasn't for her. In addition, Donna was a book author. In 1993, she published her first book, Donna's Critters and Kids. Inspired by her love of animals, it was a compilation of children's stories with Christian themes. Over 100,000 copies were sold. She went on to write Miss Donna's Mulberry Acres Farm and, in 2013, published a cookbook titled Southern Favorites with a Taste of Hollywood. The cookbook included advice on proper behavior in Hollywood in addition to recipes, fusing her Hollywood experience with her Southern charm. In 1993, Donna received a request to reprise her role as Ellie Mae in a Beverly Hillbillies film. She didn't think that was a good idea, so she declined. Although the film was never produced, her choice demonstrated her admiration for the role she had portrayed for so long. Donna maintained a relationship with her followers all of her life. She went to gatherings and conventions where she was still known as Ellie Mae. During one of her final performances in December 2014, she revealed an unexpected secret. All of Ellie Mae's outfits, including her well-known blue jeans and rope belt, had been preserved. She had carefully kept them in her house. Donna was 82 when she died on January 1, 2015. She experienced many unexpected turns in her life following the Beverly Hillbillies. She became a strong woman of religion, a writer, and a singer. Donna's real-life path was as distinctive and inspirational as her well-known persona, Ellie Mae, even though she will always be remembered as such. Max Baer Jr. In Oakland, California, on December 4, 1937, Max Baer Jr. was born. He rose to fame in the Beverly Hillbillies as Jethro Bodine. Although this part made him famous, it also had a significant negative impact on his career in the future. 9 years later, on March 23, 1971, the show came to an end. Max had a hard time getting new acting roles after that, as everyone only knew him as Jethro. He had a business degree and a lot of skills, but Hollywood didn't believe him. He found very little job for 3 years. There was also the issue of money. Max only received $500 per episode when the Beverly Hillbillies first debuted. His pay barely increased to $800 per episode, even after the show turned become America's most watched program. In contrast to what stars of popular shows now make, this wasn't much. Max was therefore put in a difficult situation after the show ended and acting gigs ceased to come in. Max made the decision in 1974 that he had to take charge of his own destiny. Using his economic acumen, he produced his own film, Macon County Line. He composed, acted in and produced the film, which had a production budget of just over $100,000. It became a great smash and made $35 million in spite of all the odds. This triumph helped revitalize Max's career by demonstrating that he was more than just an actor. Then, in 1976, he produced Ode to Billy Joe, another hit film. Max purchased the rights to a well-known Bobby Gentry song and made a movie out of it. With a box office receipt of $27 million, this film demonstrated Max's ability to transform modest endeavors into major hits. Max did more than that. He has an innovative business idea in 1985. Max was inspired by previous TV-themed attractions, such as the Bonanza Ranch, and made the decision to design a casino with a Beverly Hillbillies motif. He thought it would be adored by the show's fans. Despite requiring over 3 decades of planning, this project demonstrated his inventiveness and perseverance. But success wasn't the only thing Max had in life. He experienced a devastating loss in 2000. At their Tahoe, Nevada, home, his lover, Sherry Rhodes, suddenly passed away. She was discovered by Max along with a message she left behind. He experienced heartbreak at this time, and the media gave him a lot of unwelcome attention. He had to deal with his loss while in the spotlight. Jethro Bodine made him famous, but the character also constrained him. Although Max was annoyed that people couldn't picture him as anything else, he didn't let it deter him and instead incorporated the character into his business concepts. At the same time, he put a lot of effort into demonstrating that he could succeed outside of acting. At 87 years of age today, Max Baer Jr. is the final member of the Beverly Hillbillies cast to still be alive. His life demonstrates how he used obstacles to his advantage. Despite the challenges, he managed to establish a new profession as a filmmaker and businessman. Raymond Bailey. The life of Raymond Bailey was drastically altered after the dissolution of the Beverly Hillbillies in 1971. He had spent over a decade portraying the witty and anxious banker Milburn Drysdale. For the role, he was adored. However, everything slowed down for him when the show was cancelled. It was quite difficult for him to get new employment because he was already 67 years old. His final appearances were in 2 Disney films. In 1974, he portrayed a cunning businessman in Herbie Rides Again. In 1975, he played the role of a college dean in the film The Strongest Man in the World. Hollywood only viewed him as a serious authority figure, as these jobs demonstrated. Bailey never again acted after that. He didn't choose to retire. In the last episodes of the Beverly Hillbillies, Bailey began to exhibit symptoms of Alzheimer's. He gradually lost the ability to recognize his closest pals by 1976. He was looked for by his wife, Gabby George, whom he married in 1951. Bailey loved to socialize with people and enjoy life, but as his illness worsened, he avoided social situations. Between a houseboat and a modest Laguna Niguel home, he lived a tranquil life in his latter years. He solely communicated with Nancy Culp, who portrayed Miss Jane Hathaway on the show. She was nicknamed Slim by him. Alzheimer's disease was not widely recognized in the 1970s. The majority of individuals assumed it was a natural aspect of aging. Bailey required ongoing care as his health rapidly deteriorated. He tried to retain the Clampett's money in his bank, but this was a far cry from his character Drysdale, who was always shrewd and astute. Money became even another major issue. Despite the Beverly Hillbillies' widespread popularity, Bailey didn't make the kind of money that modern TV celebrities do. Actors earned between $1,500 and $3,000 per episode in those days. which, now, would be between $11,000 and $22,000. Additionally, the revenue from reruns was minimal. He also ran out of money and his medical bills continued to rise. He had portrayed a character that was completely preoccupied with saving money for years, so it was depressing. Despite the slowdown in his career, bankers still admired Bailey. Every year while the Beverly Hillbillies were on television, he received hundreds of invites to speak at banking gatherings. In the midst of the pandemonium caused by the clampet, bankers admired the way he made their occupation appear significant. Actually, in his 20s, Bailey had been a messenger in a bank, but he left because he found the job uninteresting. He made Drysdale seem more genuine by drawing on that experience many years later. He once made a joke about how bankers viewed Drysdale as someone who was attempting to get his crazy clientele to be more civilized, much like they had to deal with their own difficult clients. A heart attack claimed Bailey's life on April 15, 1980. He was 75 years old. In order to avoid a public funeral, his ashes were dispersed at sea. Not much attention was paid to his demise. Unlike several of his co-stars who received large accolades, he just earned a brief obituary in the Los Angeles Times. His portrayal of Milburn Drysdale, however, had an impact. For making banking seem approachable and humorous amid difficult economic circumstances, he received a special award from the American Bankers Association in 2019. Bailey once said, "Money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a good to pay." He probably would have loved how this award turned out to be his final punchline. Nancy Culp. Nancy Culp was famous for playing Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, but her real life after the show was full of ups and downs. She went through a lot of challenges. Some surprising twists, and moments that showed how strong and determined she was. Her story is about much more than just her TV role. In 1984, when Nancy was 62, she decided to run for Congress. She wanted to represent Pennsylvania's 9th District, even though it was mostly Republican. She was a Democrat and cared about things like helping the environment and improving education. She believed she could make a difference. Even though people were unsure about her because of her Hollywood background. Nancy told voters that if Ronald Reagan could go from acting to politics, so could she. She said, "Anyone who listens and cares can do well." But things took a bad turn when Buddy Ebsen, her co-star on the Beverly Hillbillies, supported her opponent. Buddy made a radio ad saying Nancy was too liberal for Pennsylvania. This hurt Nancy a lot because they had argued about politics before. She was a Democrat, and he was a Republican. But she never thought he'd attack her publicly. She later said, "He's not the kindly old Jed Clampett. It's none of his business." Sadly, the ad ruined her chances, and she lost badly, getting only about a third of the votes. The fight with Buddy stayed with her for years. She didn't let anyone mention his name around her. They finally made up right before she died. And Buddy admitted the ad was a mistake. Even though Nancy became famous from the Beverly Hillbillies, she didn't make as much money as people might think. She got paid $5,000 per episode, which was good back then, but not enough to last her whole life. After the show ended, her roles on TV paid much less, and by the 1980s, she was struggling with money. Things got worse when she got cancer because the treatments were expensive. She lived quietly in Palm Springs, California, teaching acting to make some extra money and relying on checks from reruns of the show. Unlike some of her co-stars, she didn't get rich from her time on TV, and that made her later years tough. Nancy's personal life was very private. She believed in fighting for civil rights and supported LGBTQ+ causes, even before many people talked about them openly. Near the end of her life, she told friends she was a lesbian, but she never said it publicly. She had been married in 1951 to a man named Charles Dacus, but they divorced in 1961. Nancy never liked to talk about him and once said, "Some doors are better left unopened." People believed their marriage ended because they were very different, but Nancy kept the details to herself. After her political loss, Nancy found a new purpose in teaching. She became a teacher at Juniata College in Pennsylvania in 1985. She taught drama, directed plays, and gave lectures about how women are shown in the media. Her students loved her and said she was tough but caring. Nancy enjoyed sharing her Hollywood stories and teaching young people about the power of storytelling. Acting was still part of her life, and she even appeared in an episode of The New Love Boat in 1989. But teaching became what she loved most. Nancy passed away on February 3, 1991, when she was 69 years old. People remembered her as a talented actress, a brave politician, and someone who stood up for what she believed in. Over time, more people have come to appreciate how much she cared about helping others and supporting causes she believed in. When the Beverly Hillbillies started streaming online, new generations got to see her as Miss Jane Hathaway again. Nancy's life wasn't easy, but she faced her challenges with strength and showed that there's more to a person than what you see on the screen. Harriet E. McGibbon. Harriet E. McGibbon became famous for playing Margaret Drysdale on the Beverly Hillbillies. Her character was a rich, snobbish woman who caused trouble for the Clampetts. After the show ended in 1971, her life took a different path, filled with challenges, losses, and some surprising stories about her family's history. When the show ended, Harriet was already 66 years old and had worked in entertainment for 50 years. She kept acting a little after that, but only in small roles. She played a rich hostess in a TV movie called The Judge and Jake Wyler in 1972, and made her last appearance in The Best Place to Be in 1979. She also appeared briefly on shows like Bewitched and Mannix. But because everyone saw her as Mrs. Drysdale, it was hard for her to get new roles. In an interview, she said it upset her because she had played big roles in Shakespeare plays before. Even though acting work slowed down, she stayed active for a while, attending parties and charity events in Beverly Hills. The 1970s were a hard time for Harriet. Her only son, William, passed away at 44. He was an art historian who loved the work of Paul Gauguin, but he had been struggling with depression. His death broke her heart. She set up a scholarship in his name, but didn't talk about it publicly. She also had money problems. Even though she made good money on the Beverly Hillbillies, poor investments left her with only a small amount. By the 1980s, her health got worse. She developed a lung disease called COPD and stayed home most of the time, only going out for church services where she carried an oxygen tank. One of the most surprising things about Harriet was her family history. Her great-grandfather, Dr. Eleazar Deming, helped slaves escape to freedom through the Underground Railroad in Indiana. He once hid a family in fake coffins to help them escape. In 1862, he was arrested for breaking the Fugitive Slave Act, but he posted bail using family money. Harriet didn't talk much about this part of her life, but in 1985, she donated his journals to a historical society to preserve his story. Harriet spent her final years living quietly in a small house in Beverly Hills with a nurse to help her. She liked to start her mornings with tea and scones and watch old movies in the afternoon. She loved watching one of her old films, For Horsemen of the Apocalypse. In 1985, she attended a reunion for the Beverly Hillbillies and wore Mrs. Drysdale's famous fox stole, but she left early because of breathing problems. She passed away in 1987 at the age of 81. She didn't want a funeral, and her ashes were placed at Forest Lawn Cemetery with a plaque that said, "Even though people mostly remember her as Mrs. Drysdale, Harriet had a long and interesting life." She was one of the first radio actors to perform live sound effects and even helped change the way dialogue was performed in American theater. Her Beverly Hillbillies character also quietly challenged gender roles by never apologizing for being ambitious. Today, her performance still inspires actors, and the scholarship she started in her sons has helped many students. Harriet's life was full of ups and downs, but she left behind a legacy far bigger than just one TV role. B. Benaderat. B. Benaderat played cousin Pearl Bodine in the Beverly Hillbillies. Even though she was only in 22 episodes during the first season in 1962 to 1963, people loved her character. On October 17, 1963, she filmed her last episode. Officially, she left to star in her own show, Petticoat Junction, but the real story was more complicated. At the time, Bea was secretly dealing with health problems. She had been diagnosed with a tumor in her left lung in 1963, but she didn't tell anyone. This happened just as the Beverly Hillbillies became a big hit. Around the same time, Paul Henning, the show's creator, gave her a hard choice. He told her she could either stay as Cousin Pearl or take the lead role in his new show, Petticoat Junction. Bea loved playing Pearl, but the chance to star in her own show was too good to turn down. Before leaving, CBS tried to convince her to stay. They even offered to double her salary. Bea thought about it, but she decided to keep her promise and moved to Petticoat Junction. At first, it was hard for her to adjust. She had trouble letting go of Pearl's accent and mannerisms. It caused delays on set, and some people wondered if she was the right fit. But Bea's talent was undeniable, and the show became a success. While Bea was thriving in her career, her health got worse. In 1967, during the 5th season of Petticoat Junction, she had surgery to remove the tumor. Sadly, doctors found her lung cancer had spread and couldn't be treated. Bea kept working as much as she could, even though she was very sick. Her last episode aired on September 28, 1968. She couldn't appear on camera, so her voice was used instead. Fans didn't know it would be her final performance. Bea passed away on October 13, 1968. Just before she died, her former co-star Buddy Ebsen visited her. Later, he shared that Bea's last words to him were, "Tell Pearl I said goodbye." Her death shocked everyone. Petticoat Junction didn't address it directly at first, saying Kate Bradley, Bea's character, was visiting relatives. Fans felt this was unfair and didn't honor her memory. Bea's legacy didn't end there. Her son, Jack Bannon, appeared on the Beverly Hillbillies in 1969 as a tribute to his mother. Buddy Ebsen helped arrange it. In 2006, Bea was inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame for her earlier work in radio. In 2018, on what would have been her 112th birthday, a special event celebrated her role as Betty Rubble in The Flintstones. Fans gathered for a live reading of a lost episode written just for her.